All right, so I'm going to show you how to get started on your charcoal still life. So the first thing you need to do is tone your paper. And remember, like I said in the technique video, for this one you are using the big sheet of paper that I gave you when you picked up your supply. So it's twice as big as the normal paper that we use and the paper that is in your sketchbook. So this is the paper that you can use for charcoal because charcoal is a very loose medium, so it's difficult to get tiny, precise details, so it helps to work at a large scale. This is actually smaller than I usually use, but this is probably the biggest that I could get you, so this is what I decided to use for this year. So for the previous two projects, I've asked that you put a grid on your photo and on your paper and use that to help you draw. You may choose to do that for this project, but it's not a requirement. This is the photo that I am going to be drawing. I have it printed. I don't have it on my iPad because I'm using my iPad to film. So that's the photo that I'm going to be using. And you're going to start by toning your paper, which I've already done off camera, so you don't have to watch me do it. So you're going to tone your paper, and then you're basically just going to start drawing. If you want to do the grid method, you can. This grid will be a little bit different because your paper is a different size. So it will be, because this is 12 by 18, it will be a 4 by 6 grid. So you put 4 by 6 on your paper, and then you do a 3-inch grid on here that is 4 boxes tall by 6 boxes wide. Okay, so I'm looking at my picture here, and I'm just kind of looking at the shapes that I see. So I see this like vase of flowers. I see these books. This is the nice L-shaped composition. I see these little macarons there, and then this little rug thing underneath. Then this kind of white shape in the back, some floor. I probably, and you probably as well, don't need to worry about like the actual like details of the floor. I'm just gonna kind of block it in as a gray object. I'm not gonna try to get like the wood grain and stuff like that. Same thing if you have sort of like a detailed background, that's not really what we're going for. Just give yourself kind of a solid background. These are the things that we're focusing on. So I'm gonna set it over here and just start blocking in my shapes with my piece of charcoal, using it kind of like a pencil. Although I wouldn't recommend holding it like this. I do recommend kind of holding it more like this. Let's see. Okay, so I have a rough layout of where everything is gonna go. It's not detailed, and it shouldn't be. Please do not ever start drawing this vase, finish drawing this vase, and then start drawing the book. You should always start with a rough outline to make sure you like where everything is placed, to make sure objects are the right scale to each other. And right now, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that it's not. Like if you look here, like the size of the books is not quite right. This thing is probably a little bit too small compared to here. Like there's a couple of issues, and there probably always will be. If you're using the grid method, you may have done a little bit better than me. But your first draft is never gonna be great. That's why charcoal is so fantastic, because literally you can just do this. And in fact, not only can you do that, I'm going to require you to do that. I had a professor who made us do this in college. And keep in mind, we had like 3-hour drawing classes. So we would draw for like an hour and a half. He'd be like, okay, now wipe down your paper. And we were always furious. And now I totally get it. And it's one of my favorite things to do is make kids wipe down their paper. So you can still see like a little ghost of the drawing that I had. And so that kind of gives me the information that I need to fix it and make it better for the next time. So I can go back in and see, okay, well, I think I made this book too short the first time, so here's how short I made it the first time. I can make it a little bit longer. So it gives you something to work with, but it doesn't like tie you to anything. So I'm gonna go back in and do this again and hopefully make it a little bit better. Okay, so now I have a second drawing that is hopefully better than my first drawing. And I am not going to show you this full process. This video is long enough as it is, and you don't have time to sit here and watch me do a couple-hour drawing. So I'm just going to kind of show you the next steps on one concentrated object instead of doing the entire thing. But just know, as I'm working, you would do each step for the entire drawing, not just for one object. But I'm just gonna do this book right here. So your next step after you've kind of blocked this out, everything's not perfect, especially like up here and stuff, and the shape of the vase is a little bit weird, but everything is in the correct position. That's what we're going for with the first step. Now that everything is in the correct position, you can kind of finish out each object, the shape of each object, to get it how it needs to be. So I'm actually already pretty happy with how this book is, but I think this part needs to come out here a little bit more. Something kind of more like that. So again, you would do this for each object. You would get the shapes of each object right. And then you would go in and you would, this is called blocking out your lights and darks. So I would look at my photo and I would see this is a little bit darker than medium. It's darker than what I have here. And then the top of it is probably about what it is right now. And then there's kind of some lines here. There's some details here. I'm not going to try to write all of this, but I am going to give the impression that there are words on it. And then kind of underneath, there's going to be a little bit dark. And I might try to get this thing in too. Okay, so the first thing I really need to do in order to fully make this happen is I need to lighten this. Otherwise, the book is not going to stand out. Okay, so I've got that. Not perfect, but it's fine for this. Like I say, I just needed it to be lighter than this so that you can kind of see, because this is going to stay about the same. So now I'm going to kind of pick up this line, because in my photo, my book does not have dark outlines around it. So I'm trying to get rid of my lines and just also maybe smooth a little bit here to make the top of the book. And then this side of the book is going to be darker. Okay, so you can see there, I've kind of blocked in the values of my book. It's not finished by any means. And I probably shouldn't have even done this yet, because I'm probably gonna go back and blend some more and end up having to do it again. But I just kind of wanted to give you like the feel for what we're doing. So you're going in, and like I said, you're blocking in values. So I would call this one done, and I would move on to another object. And I would move on to all of the objects until all of the objects were kind of at this level. So like the values, again, values your lightness and your darkness. So the lightness and the darkness are there even if the details aren't. So like if I was doing this vase, I wouldn't be worried about like all of these dimples that you see here, but I would be worried about this dark shape, this dark shape, this light shape, this light shape, this really light highlight right here. But I wouldn't be worried about all of the tiny details. So you end up with something like this everywhere. And a lot of people just want to stop there. But this is a part where it really starts to kind of take shape. So now you go in and start adding the details. And I've kind of already put in some of the details, but I'm going to do a little bit more. And I'm going to fix a couple of things. So like I said, we've got some dark outlines here. We really don't want dark outlines. We want it to look, it's not going to be photorealistic necessarily, but we do want it to look more realistic and three-dimensional and less kind of cartoonish. So even though this little, I guess, pocket watch is here in the photo right now, I am just going to ignore it, because that way I can blend more easily, and then I can come back and add it in later. So the top of this book in the photo is very smooth. So I want to get it nice and smooth. This side is kind of a little bit more rigid, but the top is smooth. And then now that I have that, I can use this to like clean up and make this line sharp again. Be careful brushing away your eraser shavings. That's why I typically don't use one of these. I would typically use my kneaded eraser. But for this, I do want it to be like really, really white, which is why I'm using this right now. But if you blow away your eraser shavings, or if you sweep away your eraser shavings, you can just sweep away your entire drawing if you're not careful. Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to this because I'm not working on that white bit anymore. Okay, so I'm not fully happy with this. I would still continue, especially this chain right here and the pocket watch I would keep working on. But this is kind of what you're going for, but over all of your drawing. So not just one object. And again, I've said this a million times and I'm going to keep saying it. You don't want to complete one section and then move on to the next section. If I was going to be really doing this, I would have done it all together. Like I would do a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here so that you don't end up with one really, really good thing and then everything else is super rushed. You want to like work on it overall. But this is kind of the effect that you're going for. And I am going to post some examples that will be on the charcoal project in Google Classroom so that you can kind of see some finished pieces to see kind of what the expectations are. If you have any questions about it though, email me and let me know.